Welcome to another week of midweek madness. So, coming off the weekend that Ennis just beat Stanionis. So let's talk about that initially, and then we'll get into the other fights that are coming up soon, and also some boxing news as well. So let's get right into it. I'll just change the view here. All right. So, yep, Drone Ennis on the weekend beats Stanionis with a six round retirement from Stanionis. It was a pretty impressive fight from Jerome Boots Ennis. I think he pretty much won every round. Stanionis did well to fight back. He was landing some shots. Ennis's defense was good though, was brilliant. But yeah, I think Stanionis, for me, maybe would have got one round, if that, but that would have been a close round. So Jerome Boots Ennis, I guess, I don't know when the pound for pound list is going to come out, but I'm assuming he could potentially be on it after this performance and gaining the undisputed titles. So the WBA, and he's currently the IBF. So, and also takes home the Ring Magazine. So the Ring Magazine is the big one. That's like the actual champion. So there we go. His record now sits at 34 wins, undefeated, 30 KOs after that retirement at the end of round 6 from Stanionis, who now goes to 15 wins with one loss to Ennis on the weekend. So I think Stanionis is a good fighter. He's a good, tough fighter, but Ennis is just a class above. So, unfortunately for Stanionis, he couldn't get past this into the 7th round. So, but anyway, we move on from that, and people want to see who's Ennis's opponent next. So for me, I think the target would be for him in the welterweight division to go for the other two belts. But the issue, so the other two belts held by Marius Barrios, the WBC, and then WBO Brian Norman. But the only issue is that Mario Barrios is looking at Mario Barrios is looking at fighting Manny Pacquiao. Wait, let me get it up. I'll just get my notes up. Yeah, so Marius Barrios is looking at fighting either Manny Pacquiao or Errol Spence. So he doesn't really have his eye on trying to obtain any of the other belts in the division. He's too focused on, I guess, a money fight. I don't know how much of a money fight it would be against Errol Spence. I'm sure a fight against Boots would probably draw in more of a crowd. I get maybe Manny Pacquiao. Yep, that's probably a bit more of a money fight, if anything. But that's what he's aiming for, apparently. And then we have Brian Norman, who's looking at defending his title in Japan. So if that goes ahead, then that's going to be another fighter that holds a belt in the welterweight division that Ennis can't capture. So for me, if he's not going to be fighting any of the champions in the welterweight division, then he's probably better off just looking at moving up, considering that he's probably already struggling with the weight, especially with the IBF when they have a rehydration clause. That makes it harder when you're already struggling to stay down in that weight. I mean, he came into this fight with more underweight than Stanionis, so he seemed to handle it all right, but I think that was just mainly because there was no dehydration clause. So if you're not going to fight for the WBC or the WBO, you're not going to actually try and become undisputed in the welterweight division. I guess maybe his best option is just to move up and try your luck in the junior middleweight division. And it's a pretty stacked division. So the people that you're going to be beating, or the people that you do beat in that division, you're going to give yourself more of a name, I guess. But I guess we'll see what happens with Boots and where he goes after that win. But it was an impressive win, and yeah, he's either going to wait and see what happens with Brian Norman Jr. if he defends his title in Japan, or if Marius Barrios continues to chase Spence or Manny Pacquiao. I don't know how Manny Pacquiao is still fighting. But anyway, then we move on to the next scheduled fight that sort of stands out is Benn Whittaker versus Liam Cameron, which is due to take place on the weekend. So this isn't a big fight. I think it's just more of a popular fight because Benn Whittaker's become more popular because of social media. He's a decent fighter, has decent skills, not much experience, and what happened last time because this is their second fight, what happened last time with Benn Whittaker versus Liam Cameron is in round 6, they both fell out the ring, and then Whittaker maybe faked an injury. It's a bit controversial, but he was starting to lose the fight, so it's definitely plausible that he faked an injury because it was only round 6 and it was a 10-round fight, and he didn't want to get up and try to continue after that, and stayed down and then went to the corner and they took his boot off, and that was it. The fight was over. So, and there was a lot of controversy in terms of what was the injury, and I think they got mixed up, him and his team, in terms of what they were using as an excuse for the injury. So there's a lot of question marks on Benn Whittaker and whether he was legit with that injury in the 6th round, and the question marks are going to be going into this fight. So this is more of an interesting fight. Let's see what happens. Liam Cameron is the more experienced fighter, and watching that fight, Benn Whittaker was doing well, but then Liam Cameron just started getting on top and started coming back, and it was all going in one direction, and that was Liam Cameron's way. So I guess we'll see if Benn Whittaker can fight a better fight than he did the first fight, and not have to fake another injury. If that's what he did do. It's questionable. Anyway, and then moving on, next one we have is Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. So Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, both their fathers fought back in the day. So now they're doing it. The rivalry has continued. In terms of this fight, I think Chris Eubank Jr. definitely has the advantage over Conor Benn in terms of experience, but then in terms of weight, because Conor Benn has to go up 2 weight classes to fight Chris Eubank Jr. And I think in terms of the types of opponents that Chris Eubank Jr.'s fought, I think he's fought more competitive fighters or higher level fighters than Conor Benn has fought. I mean, although Conor Benn's got a decent record with being undefeated, 23 wins, 14 KOs, Chris Eubank Jr. definitely has more of an extensive record and also has fought probably better competition as well. So I'd probably lean more towards Chris Eubank Jr. But I think it still will be an interesting clash, and who knows, Conor Benn might be able to come away with it as well. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I would lean more towards Chris Eubank Jr. But that's an interesting one, and it's a big clash, especially in the UK. It's going to be massive, I think. They're probably going to get a massive crowd over there for that one. But that's coming up. I think that's in not this weekend, next weekend. So that'll be an interesting one to watch. So that's the fights that we have. So this weekend, Whittaker versus Cameron, and Chris Eubank Jr. versus Benn the following weekend. But I think the Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn, That's on like 2 a.m. in Australia. So I don't know. I'll see how we go. I might get up and do a live stream. It's a bit early, but we'll see. Maybe the main event might not start until like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. Probably 5 a.m., 6 a.m. So we'll see. And then the next fights, there's only other fights probably talk about, well, won't really talk about, but Garcia, Romero. That's not until the 2nd of May, but I'll talk more about that as it gets closer to that fight. But that's a good card. I like that card. You got Haney on there, you got Lopez on there. So, yeah, I'm definitely keen to watch that one on the 2nd of May. And then Canelo Skull on that same weekend. So that's going to be a good weekend of boxing. Looking forward to that one. And then, so I keep on hearing stuff about Jake Paul fighting AJ. I think there's a lot more push towards that, especially the fact that AJ's been beaten by Triple D and we don't know what direction AJ's going in. So I think for AJ, it's probably going to be money. Well, it's always been money for AJ, as he's always stated. So I think if they get the deal done, I wouldn't be too surprised if AJ does fight Jake Paul. And I wouldn't mind it because I'm pretty sure AJ will knock him out pretty quickly. I don't think Jake Paul has much chance against AJ. I mean, AJ you would assume would be the bigger fighter. I think Jake Paul's pushing it to get to heavyweight. And Jake Paul is not very skilled at all. Like he's okay for his level, but he's just a popular fighter because of his status. So I'd be interested to see that, just to see Jake Paul get knocked out, because I think that's what would happen. And last thing, the WBC are having a Grand Prix from tonight. So they're doing like an event where they've got 3 or 4 weight divisions. I think it's the first night, 16 fights in one night, and then they'll do that over like 3 or 4 nights, and then it'll go into. So once they get past that stage, then there'll be another semi-final stage in the next few months or so, and then by December they'll have the championship, where they'll have all the final rounds of all the Grand Prix. So I don't know, that's different. It's a different one. And they got different judging as well. They got the judges apparently on seating that's higher, so they can see the ring better. They've got a different form of judging as well, so there's no draws. It's just a different format, I guess, of boxing. I don't know who's going to be in it. I don't know if there's going to be any of the top fighters in it. I think it's probably going to be more low-level fighters, but it's an interesting concept, and I think that starts at 10 p.m. Australian time if anyone wants to watch it, but I just thought that was intriguing. If I'm up that late, maybe I'll check it out, but I'm not that interested in it. I just found it fascinating. Anyway, that's the midweek madness. Just a quick one, not that much going on other than the Innes fight on the weekend. There's a couple of decent fights coming up, like the Whittaker one, and then you've also got Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn, coming up the following weekend. So, but then after that, I think that we're getting into some good fights. So most weekends there's going to be at least a half decent fight on. So a lot of fights happening at the moment. And then we build into the Canelo fight. I mean, the Canelo fight that's coming up, it's not a big one. I think we all know that Canelo's probably just going to walk through this guy and get his belt back and be undisputed champion again. But it's all building to the bigger fight at the end of the year. So, yep. So William Skull is the one that he's fighting in a few weeks. Yep, and that's all going to build up to the Terence Crawford fight, which is going to be a massive one, I think. but we've still got to the end of the year until that one. Anyway, that's all I got for a quick midweek madness. Just trying to be consistent with doing this. So whether I get many views or not, whatever, doesn't really matter. Anyway, until next time, peace out.